I'm Antonio Graceffa. We're at the Shan State Army headquarters at Lloyd's Lang. We're about to go on a patrol. A few days ago was Shan Children's Day, which is a really big day for the Shan people. They have a lot of events for the children. Inside of Shan State, the SPDC prevents them from observing their Shan culture. Families walked for up to a month to bring their children into this camp just so they could have one pleasant day. The SPDC knows that, and they've got troops waiting in the bushes now to ambush these families on their way back to their village. So we've had to send a large number of soldiers just to escort the civilians back to their homes. This morning we're on our way out on a patrol. We've got an escort of 15 armed men. We're going to go straight out to the front lines where apparently there's been a massive movement of SPDC forces. We've just arrived at the front lines, and from here we'll be able to see three different armies, the UWSA, United Wa State Army, the Thai Army, and the Burmese Army, the SPDC. One of the sergeants has a radio, and we're listening in, and we're actually hearing Burmese chatter on the radio right now. One of the things that we're looking for is that we've heard rumors that there are Chinese advisors in the field with the Wa Army, so we're listening to hear if there's any Chinese, and I guess they'll need me to interpret for them. The war in Burma is one of the longest running conflicts on the planet. It's been going on for more than 40 years, as the SPDC Federal Burmese forces seek to annihilate the tribal people. Some of the larger tribal groups have formed defensive armies. Among them are the Shan, the Karen, the Wa, and the Kachin. The SPDC forces typically raid the villages, they murder villagers, they seize people as forced labor, they use them as porters and as human mine detectors, forcing them to walk before them into the minefields. They also use them as human shields when they go into combat, forcing the villagers to absorb the bullets to protect the SPDC soldiers. The state sponsors gang rape as an element of torture. I've actually interviewed girls as young as 11 who were raped by an entire platoon of soldiers. The war in Burma is financed through the drugs trade. The SPDC forces sell methamphetamine and heroin, which is moved through neighboring Thailand. In order to expedite their drug business, they often forcibly relocate villages that stand in their way. As a result of the SPDC forced relocations, nearly 2 million refugees have fled into neighboring Thailand. This number does not count the possibly millions who are living in internally displaced person camps on the Burmese side of the border. The Shan State Army headquarters at Lloyd's Lang has become an island of safety for the Shan people. It's one of the few places that the fleeing villagers can escape to and remain within their own culture. At present, there are 350 refugee families living on the base. Among them are over 250 unescorted minors. This means either children whose parents were killed or children whose parents brought them to the base in the hopes that they would have a better, safer life. As a result of forced relocations, the entire area around Lloyd's Lang has become absent of Shan villages. The closest village is 45 kilometers away. Some villagers have had to walk for up to a month to arrive here. They can only move at night because they have to avoid the SPDC soldiers. The UWSA, United Wa State Army, has enslaved an entire village where they forced the villagers to work in the opium trade. Back in the 80s and 90s, when the war was running very hot, there were about a dozen armed factions. Today, there's officially only 2 armed resistance groups. That's the Shan State Army and the Karen National Union. The Burmese Army, the SPDC, maintains at least 400,000 troops. They spend somewhere between 40 and 70% of their gross national product on defense. Since the country has no external enemies, this means this entire military apparatus, which is one of the largest in the world, was built and designed strictly to kill their own people. State paranoia has been a pervasive element of the military junta which rules Burma. They control all the media. There's only one cell phone provider, there's only one internet provider, both controlled by the state. Journalists are strictly prohibited from entering Burma, and I've had to enter under the protection of the Shan State Army. As a tourist, you can fly to Yangon, but it costs $200 to get a visa. You'll be closely watched, and any Burmese person who you have contact with is putting himself in danger. The other way to enter Burma as a tourist is to cross over the border from Thailand at Tachile, in which case you have to surrender your passport. Burma is home to countless ethnic minorities, who all combined outnumber the Burmans who control all the power. The Shan belong to the Taiyi ethnic group. They originated in Xizangbanna, China, and they are related very closely in language, religion, and culture to the Thais of Thailand and the Lao people. The Shan people were an independent kingdom until about 500 years ago when the last Shan king died. After that, the Shan state became the Shan states, each state ruled by a prince. This system existed until about 1962, when General Ne Win came to power through a military coup. Before Burma was granted independence by the British Crown, the Panglong Agreement was signed, which gave the Shan state the right to become their own country to secede from the Union of Burma after 10 years. General Ne Win tore up this agreement and began a genocidal war against all of the ethnic people of Burma. The Shan people see themselves as the cousins of neighboring Thailand. In Thailand, the culture, the religion, and the king are all held in great reverence. Here in Shanland, nearly 100% of the people are Buddhist, and almost all boys will serve as novice monks at some time in their lives. In every home, you'll find a Buddhist shrine, and on that shrine, there'll be an image of the Thai monarch, showing the reverence the Shan people have for the world's longest reigning king. For centuries, the Burmese were the traditional enemies of the Thai. Older Thais and royalist Thais see the Shan as a buffer zone of Thai ethnicity which protects them from their neighbor to the north. The original commander of the Shan State Army was General Khun Sa. Khun Sa eventually made his way onto the FBI's most wanted list as one of the world's largest drug dealers. After Khun Sa's defection to the Burmese junta, Colonel Yod Suk took control of the Shan State Army and revamped all of their drug policies. Today, they're recognized as an anti-drug force, which helps stem the flow of drugs across the border into Thailand. The Burmese junta and the Wa State Army are both heavily involved in the narcotics trade. The Wa State Army has a ceasefire agreement with the SPDC, and while the Shan are seen as a buffering force to help stem the flow of drugs into Thailand, the Wa have been used as a proxy army to protect SPDC drug flow. Where many of the ethnic armies from before have surrendered their weapons, the Wa are in a unique situation of ceasefire, which means they're still under arms, but they've agreed not to attack the SPDC. They're used by the SPDC to help them with their drugs trade. Often, they're ordered to attack the Shan State Army, and in many of the battles, the Shan State Army alone is defending against two armies, as the SPDC and the Wa join forces.
I've never seen the moon smile at me the way it does in Shanland, and I've never seen the sun burn so magenta through the palms. I've never seen the bougainvilleas overflow the way they do in Burma. And I've never seen a people so hungry for their nation as the Shans. Do you notice the beauty that surrounds you? Do you live in a country that is free? The same moon and the same sun shines on people, everyone, but some of them are fighting desperately for a place to call home. It's called the land of smiles, but if you look deep in their eyes, you'll see a secret of war-torn lives and the lies they hide to survive. And it's a land of many flowers that are fading in the hour by the brothels, while the burning fields of poppy kills a family's means to stay alive. Do you notice the beauty that surrounds you? Do you live in a country that is free? The same moon and the same sun shines on people, everyone, but some of them are fighting desperately for a place to call home.